Hey, and welcome back to the Creative Odyssey podcast. And in this episode of Creative Odyssey, I talk with artist and graphic designer James Coffman. We explore his unusual journey from playing professional baseball to building a career in art and design. James shares how his visual style developed, the influences behind his work, and how collaborations with brands like Zara came out. We also talk about the balance between creativity and business and why making work for yourself is important and how focusing on long-term growth can help artists stay true to their voice. Thank you for tuning in and jump right into the conversation. So, welcome back to the Creative Odyssey podcast. And today I'm here with James Kaufman, and I'm super excited to talk to you, James. Why don't you just introduce yourself in your own words? How would you describe yourself?
Hey, I'm James. I'm a artist, graphic designer, somewhere in between those 2 points. I live in Portland, Oregon. Uh, yeah, I do a lot of things. I illustrate, work on branding, design typefaces that get used all over, uh, license my artwork to companies big and small. But yeah, just kind of somewhere in the nebulous field of creativity, I suppose.
Yeah, I was really curious how you would put yourself first if you are designer first or artist first. That's why I keep that question open. And I think you see yourself as an artist and designer comes second is something that is really interesting to me because that's a huge difference in how you see yourself and see your work. And as you mentioned, your typefaces and like fonts, it is not the correct term for the listener. A typeface is not a font. It's not the same, even though it's used like interchangeably. But the typeface I use for my own logo is yours. I think it's kind of mistaken. I think it's Mystica, which I used here, and I
Mhm.
really
It
love
is.
it. And yeah, it is Mystica, and I think the switch made something big for me because it's something I've seen missing in most other typefaces. Like the character, really, there is some personality in it that I've barely seen in other typefaces. And generally, I really like your work. That's why your listener cannot see it currently, but I'm wearing a Zara hoodie in collaboration, which James Kaufman designed himself, and this is something that kind of surprised me because it's like a big, it's the biggest textile brand in the world. I think I'm correct when I'm stating that. And I was like super excited, and no one knew what I was going for because I was so hyped, and no one else kind of is nothing like big brand, big designer collab like which was the last I think Root, if you know Root with an H, um, but that is still kind of underground. But at the time, I think it was 23, yeah, and nobody in my surrounding knew about you, and I was super excited to get at least one piece, and I'm kind of mad that I didn't get more. And it is still fast fashion, so the season changed so fast I couldn't get anything. But maybe I will track and hunt down um, some used or like secondhand stuff still. But there's a lot of things that happened before that. I mean, that's kind of an highlight, but how did you end up here? But better said, how did you get started?
My story's a little odd. So I played baseball for a very long time. That was kind of my path in life. Like duality of me is my dad is a Major League Baseball scout for the Oakland A's, and my mom's an artist and an art teacher. So I kind of went down one
Mm.
path and then the other. But yeah, played baseball my whole life. Went through college on scholarship. Played a couple years of minor league baseball on the Arizona Diamondbacks organization. Um, And then, when that ends, you kind of, it's a very sudden ending. You're kind of just thrown out into the world where you now have no touch points other than
Mm.
this identity that you've kind of created around yourself, which really isn't valid anymore because you are a, fill in the blank, and then now you're not
Yeah.
this anymore. So what are you? Um, I always, loved creating, building, drawing, painting, anything like that. That was kind of always my happy space, even growing up as a kid. Uh, I live in Portland, Oregon. Nike is right down the road. I I thought working for them would be a good meshing of athletics and creativity.
Yeah.
I I yeah, I painted for a while, for like a year or so. Had a couple shows. Nothing crazy. Mostly kind of creating these funky little abstract pieces, which you know there wasn't a lot to them. But yeah, figured I'd need something stable, quotation marks.
Yeah.
So signed up for a graphic design degree at the university here without even really knowing what that entirely meant. Got I think a couple classes in, realized I had a knack for it, uh, maybe more so than some of the other people. I think I joined in the summer, so I just got thrown into a class full of juniors and seniors and
Mm.
held my own. The teacher was really cool, really, really motivating. Uh, yeah, I spent, I think, 2 years in that design program. Never finished. I I really loved it. No reason other grades were good. Had an opportunity to move down to the Bay Area, like around San Francisco at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, I had started doing freelance work on the side. It was kind of like just starting to pay enough to like split rent with my partner at the time, and yeah, kind of took a leap and a chance, and figured if I fell on my face, I could always go back and finish school and go the corporate route, I suppose. But luckily that never happened. I think that was probably the end of 2019 is when that happened. So that's about going on 7 years now. I've been
Mm.
doing this full time, but yeah, that's kind of the burgeoning of how I started doing what I'd say I'm doing now.
That's a very cool route and like combination of things. Do you think that both the sports part and the artistic part played a role in what you do now? So do you think the baseball James is still inside of you when you're like pursuing your arts?
Um, it is, of course. It doesn't probably show through in how I present myself. I think I ran away from that side for a while. Um, yeah, early on in school, I think the only thing I knew was like competition, competitiveness. I
Mm.
just remember showing up to class, trying to make my project so good it would actually hurt the feelings of like the person that had to present after me. So I've mellowed out quite a bit since then. But yeah, that competitive spirit definitely kind of drove me early on. And then, like I said, I've mellowed out quite a bit since then. But that's
Yeah.
early 20s me. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something that is really early 20s. And as I'm getting 27 this year, I'm turning 27, and I feel the same. It's a weird time, and I'm personally glad that you kind of made the switch and found something you're vibing with, and you don't even need competition to thrive. As I've kind of projected it to your art style, I would say it's really calm. It's at least it's calming me, especially the animations you've been putting out recently.
Mm.
There's like a for the lack of better words, um, some kind of serenity. Is that something you would say? It's like serene and calm, and it's like being in the desert alone and feeling kind of in peace, but still I really like this Midwestern feel. And generally, how did you came up with this whole Midwest deserty? it's something I would say like New Mexico. It's kind of Mexican American style. How do you get into this more?
Yeah, I'll say I don't know. I think it's more about a sense of like stillness and calmness and just kind of yeah, a
Yeah.
sense of something peaceful. I think you know, the creative space can be extremely like overwhelming, super saturated, colorful movement. Everything is kind of coming at you at once. And I kind of yeah, maybe take a little more uh, artful side to that of just trying to create something that's like is what it is and it's very simple and uh, just at a glance it's kind of like a little bit of a deep breath. Um, yeah, the Southwest thing's interesting. I feel like I've moved away from that recently. The fonts don't don't help me out. They're named after Southwest or
Yeah.
places. Not all of them. Some of them are, down the road from where I live now. Some of them are at the beach an hour away from here. But yeah, I spent a lot of time in the American Southwest growing up. Like I said, my dad was in baseball. He was a minor league coach before he was a scout. So we did spring training down in Arizona every year as a little kid. We lived in Texas for a little while in a small little like oil town, basically. Bounced around
Mm.
with his teams. I kind of grew up on buses going to small towns, sitting in dugouts with him. Uh, so yeah, a lot of that Southwest just I don't know imagery, lifestyle, calmness, whatever you want to call it, kind of
Yeah.
just feels good to me. I think that's probably where some of that comes from. Uh, and then just a lot of the influences I saw as I was starting out in the design world kind of came through that aesthetic and kind of lifestyle. So I think those two paired together are kind of the touchstone of that.
Yeah, and I think they feel very personal and authentic and like well put together, as in a way that they're not overly simplistic, but just as you said, it's kind of the stillness. And from an artist perspective, it's so easy to overdo it and to add something more and to kind of adjust it a little bit. And I think both the art style and the simplicity works just works. I cannot say anything else that I really like the style. And I just recently kind of scrolled down your whole Instagram feed to not to stalk you in any kind of creepy way, but to really see the progression. And I've seen some more detailed and more fine line stuff in the earlier days. I think it's just a few years ago, but still, you're trying out, but you're iterating, and it keeps evolving in such a way that it makes sense. And I think it's something I admire personally because I would kind of try to reinvent my whole style every year completely. And I still feel the way of changing everything like a whole, I don't know how to say, like 180 degrees, completely change anything, everything of your whole style. But you just keep like evolving really, like it builds up one another and only gets like more to the core of what you really want to kind of create. So how did you really get in, like sticking with an art style and evolving it instead of just scrapping it and try like 1,000 different styles?
Yeah, I think it's just refining the things that I really liked, the artists that I really liked, the designers at the time. Uh, and then, yeah, if you hopefully you didn't go back too far because some of that stuff is pretty rough. But really early on, yeah, it was a little more not all over the place. I think there's a through line through everything.
Yeah.
But it was more detailed, maybe a little rougher, a little less professional, probably as everybody is when they're starting out, I suppose. But yeah, I think just kind of chipping away and refining, kind of cutting the fat off of things I was doing. You kind of find rules along the way that you try and stay within, and then you lock yourself into those like aesthetic rules, and then instead of jumping outside the box, you kind of push at the walls of that and try and kind of see what's like at the very edge where it still feels, you know, like you're not turning your back on what you've been doing, but you're trying to just, yeah, squeeze every last little bit out of these principles that you're following. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, the overall aesthetic, yeah, comes from just, I love like the simple poster work of like, Picasso, Matisse, Calder. Those are kind of like the godfathers of the aesthetic probably. And then paired with, more modern designers, there's, John Contino, who I really loved and kind of, you know, felt like I think I've talked to him maybe once on Instagram, very, very briefly, just kind of like a complimentary thing. But his kind of simple hand-drawn aesthetic really, uh, resonated with me. Uh, I think he had something forever ago about just like letting your hand kind of do what it does, and it's going to be you rather than anybody can drag and drop a shape, but only you can kind of draw even a circle the way you're going to draw it.
Mm.
And you do that over and over again enough, your hand refines, and it just really becomes your own thing. Also, I think I was definitely an outsider coming in, and you go into art school thinking everyone's wearing black
Mm.
turtlenecks and big glasses or something like that. I was a baseball kid. Like, uh, he's somebody that I think he's from New York, comes from like kind of a like metal scene almost, which felt very opposite to, you
Yeah.
know, that isn't maybe not the design world in general, but you know, different enough where he kind of carved out his own path, was who he was, and you know, unashamedly so. So, kind of made me feel like I can just do what I want to do and be who I am, and uh, there's a spot for that. Anyways, long tangent to say, yeah, his aesthetic, his kind of story resonated early. People like John Schubert, who's out of Texas, love his work. Real fun. Wow, Darren, if you know his stuff, who's become a decent little friend. Met him once and talked to him fairly frequently. Uh, yeah, it's interesting. People that are on your Pinterest boards in design school kind of become your peers and colleagues and sometimes
Mm.
friends. So it's a weird thing. I think Darren was on every board I ever made in design school, and now he's you know texting me stupid stuff at midnight sometimes. But yeah, so uh, yeah, funny how that works.
Yeah, it's really really it's a wonderful thing to see if your work really resonates and even sometimes impresses the people that impressed you, that influenced you, and it's like a full circle moment sometimes, and you never know who you end up collaborating with or um, at least kind of exchange with. Um, but it's a good thing. Um, I really like the way you're answering questions like in a Q&A on Instagram, where you really give kind of in-depth answers on really like creative questions, um, how you stand on like collaborations. That's one that stuck into my mind, where you have like a clear statement of what you think about collaboration. And do you remember what you've been answering?
As far as collaborations, or
Yeah, I think the question was, do you if you do collaborations and how do you do them? Because you've done licensing work, so people use your typefaces and your fonts to create like designs for tequila bottles, or your designs being used by Zara for creating garments. but it's really like a difference if you are they're using parts of your work to create a product, or if you're working together with another artist, for example, to create something.
Hmm. Yeah, I suppose that's the, not even sure if it's being a designer at that point or some kind of product creator, but yeah, when you uh, like make the fonts, those kind of leave your hands and then just enter the world, and you don't really know where they're gonna end up. Um, it's interesting. It's kind of like playing Where's Waldo, if you guys are familiar with that old book.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you'll walk through a grocery store and I'll see, a few things with my font on them every time I go in, or um, there's certain stores where I'm like, I know my stuff's probably in here somewhere, and it's, stuff I've never seen or whatever. And then you have stuff that you're a little more hands-on with, like licensing a piece of artwork. I licensed a piece to a book publisher, I think like in the fall, something like that, over the summer. Didn't really think much of it. It's like a New York Times bestseller right now. I was in the airport 2 nights ago and walked past a shelf, and there's my, illustration. And yeah, that's interesting. It's really, you know, I don't know, fulfilling, but just kind of fun to see your stuff pop up in the world and pass it. And, maybe that's something that us as artists or designers will appreciate more. I don't think most
Yeah.
people, you know, you try to explain to somebody that that's my font, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Then you have to explain a lot more. But yeah, that. And then there's like the fully hands-on projects like the Zaras or things like that, where you're kind of in it with a creative team and working towards a goal. And yeah, it's just there's no degrees of separation there.
Mm.
It's just you are creating the product yourself for the most part,
Yeah.
in collaboration with, some other people. But yeah, and then seeing that in the world is pretty wild. I think that was in, I think they have 2,200 stores worldwide, and it wasn't in every single one on a shelf in front or on a whatever. I had people from, I think I had one that sticks out. There was somebody from Macedonia that was sending me a like picture of them in a shirt. Like I have thought about Macedonia since learning about Alexander the Great, I think. So kind of crazy my works there. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the the one thing that I kind of remember is you saying that ultimately the work, if you see the work as some kind of spiritual thing, needs to be done through you and by you in the end. Like you can collaborate, but it's still your work mixed with someone else's processes, but it's still kind of your essence that you're putting into it.
Mhm.
And I think that really makes sense with what you've been creating in the last time. So as I'm really curious, as we kind of get two or three times to the Zara topic, I don't even remember how that came out. Did they just find your work and approach you, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it's funny. It almost didn't happen. So at least their like creative side is based in Spain. I got a cold email, random one from, it didn't have it was like a Gmail account, something like that, I think. Um, and it was just like I could tell it wasn't a native English speaker. It wasn't bad English by any means, but it was just like, hey, are you interested in like collaborating or licensing work, something like that? Some very like vague email. And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, tell me about the project. And then they were said something like, oh, well, we are the agency that represents like Zara, or we're doing a project with them. So it's like sort of a middleman agency
Mm,
that generally works very closely with them. So yeah, it really did come out of nowhere. It was, I think, 2023. I had been, out of design school for maybe 4 years at that point, more closer to 3. So that's something you don't really feel as attainable. That feels like a, 50-year-old me project when I'm, established and everything, whatever.
Like the
But
Keith Haring stuff at HMM.
yeah, yeah, it, it's it's really that is one of the weirder things about this career is, it should, in your mind, it makes sense that it would be exponential, and small projects lead to bigger ones slowly over time, and it's kind of just a scattering of, you don't know um, what's going to happen. I still work on super small projects, and the big ones kind of come out of nowhere. I think around that time I also did a big project for Rivian, the like electric car company over here.
Mm.
Uh, I did a bunch of stuff for their headquarters. It was all internal, so it never really saw the light of day, unfortunately, but it was cool stuff. I think I asked them for reference photos once. We did a bunch of like artwork for their headquarters. I think it's in Illinois, and then like they were sandblasting my stuff onto the floor and putting it
Mm.
on tables and walls and things like that. I was like, this is going to be a cool portfolio piece. Uh,
Yeah.
and then, a few months went by. I didn't really hear much after the final thank you. I was like, hey, can I get some photos of that? And then it was somebody just walked around with their iPhone and took a few photos. I was like, damn. Uh,
Mm.
but yeah, that to say, I felt like I was, pretty small at that point. Was still kind of figuring things out, and then, a Zara collaboration with, I think we did 16 pieces, like a full-on collection with my name on them, throughout the world. Kind of gets dropped in your lap, and you know, I don't think I've ever had um, like a true imposter syndrome. For whatever reason, I'm delusionally confident in my work, but that's probably as close as I've got to being like, I think I'm out of my depth here. This feels like more than I'm capable of. But uh, weirdly enough, that was probably the easiest project I've ever worked on.
Yeah.
They basically said, we just want so many pieces. It kind of gave me free reign. They just had to clear some like phrasing things, just because when you're putting things out to that many places, there's like copyright issues. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was a very clean process. They were super professional. I still occasionally talk to the creative director just over Instagram. Nice dude. Uh, but yeah, yeah, you kind of never know when, you know, where things come from.
No, and there's really not like the perfect timing for anything. And whenever you get the chance to create something or to make something happen, then you should really pursue it and not wait for it and imagine your creative work kind of works just exponentially. You never know what happens next, and I think that's something really cool early on. And yeah, let's come to a topic that really interested me a lot. It's how you manage both the artistic side and the entrepreneurial side. That you mastered the sporty side, like the athletic and arts. I get that. But
Mhm.
how did you manage to really pursue the career and like the business you're doing right now?
Um, just poorly is what I'll say. Um, I don't know what it looks like over Instagram or anything like that, but I'm a pretty unorganized person. Off screen, I have a list of about 20 things I have to do today. 20 things I was supposed to do yesterday, and then I just didn't do.
Yeah.
So, so that's kind of how it goes. I don't know. I know I leave a lot of money on the table. I do a lot of things that um, I just don't do the things I don't want to do generally. And
Yeah.
I think I just put out enough art where it kind of just makes up for that. I really um, value my time as an artist before anything else. So
Yeah.
that's my focus. Even if I have a project, like I'm going to make something for myself that day and hopefully share it if it's good enough. And I think that, you know, sometimes I view it as like I'm doing this so I don't have to do this, or
Mm.
something I'd rather do. But I do think it is beneficial to just not just be able to like put yourself first as an artist and make the time for yourself and put something out because it does usually come back around. Somebody sees that one piece and then they're going to hire you for a project based off it, or they're going to see that piece and 2 years later, someone's going to license it and that's money in your pocket. And it's, the piece gets to live a new life. Um, but yeah, as far as the business owner side, I think I do enough to, not get audited, knock on wood, by the IRS, and
Yeah.
you know, you know, keep everything running fairly smoothly. But I'm definitely not you know, sending setting reminders, doing Google Calendar invites for everything, or having a schedule. I kind of just try my best to work through things as I do them. Uh, but yeah.
Yeah, but I can really see the approach of putting yourself first and expressing yourself as a source of energy, kind of as your creative motor, and not to do like the rational thing and work only to look for the next opportunities. I think, as you said before, they really come unexpected, and you cannot kind of optimize your workflow for opportunities, but rather just put out your best work and really being in the flow and really pursuing that and putting that first is something. Yeah, I think it's a good way, and I can see why both works. And especially, as you said, if you're doing something great and it ends up being licensed, or maybe it's an original artwork and someone wants to pay you an extraordinary amount of money to put it in their homes, then that's I think it's better than kind of looking for every little opportunity to make money, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think it's what do you call it? A feast or famine mindset kind of thing. Like, if you're always creating for yourself, you're kind of like building up this store of like creative wealth, and it's just something you have. And if you're only kind of working for the next project, working, um, for clients where every decision is kind of micromanaged, or just kind of cut away at, it's just, it does become frustrating. And I can see why people, you know, you hear burnout constantly in this field. And I think it's not so much because people get tired of creating things, it's because they get tired of creating something and then having the legs constantly cut out from underneath it. And
Mm,
it's just something that I think everybody deals with no matter what level. It's definitely worse when you're starting out. I always feel bad for kids fresh out of design school that are kind of bright-eyed and going to go, I'm going to be a freelance designer. I'm really good. I have, a vision. And then somebody hires you, says, "Oh, I love your stuff." And then it's, chopped away at until it's kind of a Frankenstein of what you wanted. It's
yeah,
disheartening. And it's it does get I always say there should be a it gets better campaign for designers, but it
yeah,
it does get better. The longer you're in this, kind of the more, control you have over things. It's a sliding scale. Some projects go smoother than others, but yeah, I
yeah,
think that was an answer to some question. I don't know.
yeah, sure. And I think really that's the one big challenge as a designer is to, as a designer, you are providing a service for someone, but you also want to kind of express yourself creatively. So that's why you still also need to be an artist. An artist doesn't need to fulfill anything other than what they want to create. And an artist can move freely from rules and from expectations, but a designer kind of must fulfill a need or some kind of purpose in the end. And do you think any designer also needs to be an artist, or should
I
be?
think I think the best ones are, and the best ones have a, uh, not to sound like Rick Rubin, but a confidence in their work and their skills. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I think, I don't know, there's like some magical, shiny little thing that comes from creating work that's purely for yourself. And if you can kind of maintain that spark and use it for a design project, like that's where the best work is going to be. Um, if you're just purely designing to fill a need, it's probably going to be derivative of, other work, things you've done in the past. You just, when you're working purely as a designer, you don't really give yourself the free reign to create something new and special. You can create
Mm.
something that looks good, you can create something that works and is successful, but it's probably not going to be new or, it's much harder to work that way. Um, and that's why I try to work or think of myself as an artist first, who is, almost creating this piece with these kind of loose guidelines for a brand, and then you're creating like the brand around this piece of art rather than I'm creating a logo. You're creating a piece of art that will be a logo, essentially, if that makes sense. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I choose to think of it.
Yeah, with your creative output and um, the word I was kind of missing to describe how I experience your artwork and designs is very symbolistic. I think a lot of basically everything works as a symbol itself, and a symbol could be used as a logo, as art, and it's like very multi-purpose. And that way it makes sense for you to say that. Um, if you take like abstract art, it's so hard to compare because you cannot, as I don't know if you can see it like here. So
Hmm.
I'm doing more like abstract stuff, and you basically cannot use it as a logo for anything. You maybe can, I don't know if you can sell like wallpapers or stuff like that. That's like the entrepreneurial thing where you put your art and you license that and make it accessible. And I even ordered some prints. Um, a print that I gifted my grandma, and she really appreciated it. And on a side note, I wish you put out more print art that I
I know.
can, yeah, like basically
It's
anything.
on the
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Yeah.
But that's something you're leaving on the table, because I would have ordered much more if there were more prints available.
All right. I'm
Yeah.
I'm bumping it up to the top of the list right now,
Yeah,
actually.
I think it's getting up of the list. It's the
Yeah.
priority is rising because the demand is rising as well. But I
That's one
can
of
really
those
see. Yeah,
bad business owner things I'm doing right now is just avoiding, adding prints to the shop and doing all the back end work on that. But yeah, that does need to get done. It's overdue.
but you're
But
not
thank you for that.
yeah, you're not diluting your work neither. So there is a demand, but there's not. You're not selling yourself out. You're not a sellout. If that's something like a compliment. Um,
Mhm. No, it
but
is.
I can really see that your work works both commercially. I would say it's like commercially, but not. It's not like I'm not judging that it can be used commercially. It's something neutral, but it can be used commercially, and it's still highly aesthetic. It's not like this corporate design slop trends that I don't know how they're named right now, but these oversized illustration of people that are just, I don't know what the name was, but
Mhm.
these corporate design people stuff that just has nothing at the end and is just bright and colorful and changes every few years, but you still try to keep up speaking the same design language after all, and you're not selling yourself out and making it more pleasing, but it still can be used because it's so symbolistic.
Thank you. Yeah, no, that I appreciate that. I really do. Yeah, put a lot of stock in like the long-term perspective or perception of my work and life and stuff. And I was having this conversation with my girlfriend the other day, and she was like, "Yeah, you kind of talk about death a lot," and it's like that's yeah. So I have a sort of long-term thinking towards how I want my work perceived, and
Hmm.
I don't want to be a good artist that just it's on every Target t-shirt and whatever and things like that. I really I care about what I make and I want it to, outlive me and be respectable, and even if that means maybe not cashing out at every opportunity, that's
Yep.
fine. I'll do well enough to have a comfortable life in the meantime, and uh, yeah, I just that's not what I want. There's things more important than, you know, a big check from some random startup. But,
Yeah.
you know, there's a sliding scale on everything.
Yeah. I think that's very something that I respect for not setting out and still be successful enough to live a good life. I think it's also not a good way to starve yourself only to seem exclusive and hard to work with. I think there's a fine line of creating a demand and not being available for anything. But I think that approach works. So you kind of see this long term, this perenniality, your work being so. And anything you create, everything you create, works in the long term. You're not creating just for now, but for now and for forever. And I see this
Mhm.
approach, and I heard this approach in like writing perennial. As you I don't know if you know the book from Ryan Holiday, Perennial Seller. I think he kind of gets to the point of try to make it timeless, not
Hmm.
to make it dull and like strip anything out of it and make it like not too tied to the time itself. It's not you
Hmm.
selling NFTs a few years ago or some silly stuff like that and cashing out
Yeah,
on that. Because you see where this was heading. It's they're worthless now, and they were spending almost billions on horrible art.
I know. I did sidestep that, thankfully. I had a couple offers. One I'm really glad I didn't go with. Some guy offered a good little payday, and I was like, yeah, we have these collaborations set up and it's going to be this huge thing. And then, I think year later, he was getting sued by like some, I think it was Hermes, something like that, for copyright infringement or something like that. It just turned into a
Yeah,
mess. And I kind of was like, whew, kind of dodged one there. Um, but yeah, I suppose that is something I thought about even at that time. Kind of seemed like the thing to do with art. It's hard to make money as an artist, I think, for, uh, a lot of people. It's kind of, again, feast and famine. It's like the top, whatever, make good chunk, and then everyone else is kind of just getting by. But that was an opportunity for people to kind of cash in on art, I think, and it turned into a big mess, is what it looks like. And I think
yeah,
I would have felt really bad if somebody that liked my work bought something and then it just tanked in value and it's worthless, and kind of the realization that it was always sort of worthless kind of comes about, and you kind of
mm.
feel like you pulled the rug from underneath somebody. Um, but yeah, I don't know. It was a weird time for everybody, I think.
yeah. That really was it was like a craze, and in the long term, it's better to not being the one who's kind of associated with that kind of stuff. So you do your stuff and you trust your work, and I do think you have like a healthy self-confidence when it comes to your work, and it is good to be self-conscious and try to reflect yourself on some time and think, is your work really good? But if you're confident enough to stay persistent, and I've seen that in your work, and that's what is make it seem so holistic almost. So everything kind of works together, and that's probably why it's resonating with me so much. I'm not trying to glaze you too much here. I do really, for the listener, I do really appreciate James's artwork and designs, but also the way he kind of approaches things. And yeah, I really want to thank you for your time. And before we end, I'm really curious about what are people are reading. Are you even a books person? It's not not that I disvalue people who don't read, but do you have any kind of book recommendations, things that inspired you in any kind of way? Doesn't need to be nonfiction, could be anything. So I'm trying to get more into all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Now I'm on the spot. What did I just finished I've been going through a Hemingway kind of cycle lately. So I just finished Islands in the Stream, and then it's like a little micro inspiration thing. I pulled some quote from there. I think it was 2 posts ago. I made it into like a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
reel. It was about death and sorrow and things like that. So that was interesting. Um, right now I'm reading A Short History of Decay by I think it's E.M. Ciren. It's kind of like philosophical and maybe Nietzsche adjacent. It's not something I generally advertise that I'd read, but it is interesting. There's some good stuff in there.
yeah.
Uh, God, as far as like, again, now I'm on the spot. I'm not sure if there's anything recently I've read that I'm going to say everyone should read, but
It's very subjective to
it
say.
is. I know.
Yeah,
I would. I usually have a good reading list stocked, but uh, yeah, I don't know. I do like Ryan Holiday, as you mentioned. I've read
yeah,
a few of his. I haven't read that one, but he always has useful things. And it might be a generic one, but I always liked Robert Greene. Everything he writes, I think I've read, and I do love his stuff. And I think, especially when you're starting out, especially in a business, uh, those are really helpful just as a way to kind of navigate people and understand people and kind of the world. And you know, you don't need to be use it nefariously, but there are good good bits in there to
yeah,
kind of pull in, some general rules for life that you can pick and choose from. But yeah, anything by Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power, obviously. But I think the best one of his is Mastery,
yeah,
uh, which
yeah,
really, really applies to kind of what we do as artists, designers, creatives, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I would, if I was ever going to hire somebody, I'd say that's required reading first and foremost. Super helpful. That I guess that'd be my overarching recommendation is that you read Mastery by Robert Greene.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's something I really need to get into. The only thing that I'm hesitant of is that I'm so like multi-passionate that I don't know if reading mastery is the right thing, you know? I'm not trying to master anything right now. I want to figure out which are the main two or three things that I'm kind of want to exceed in and want to excel in, if that's the right word.
Mhm.
Sorry if I'm butchering some
No,
sayings.
you're
It's like, yeah,
you're great.
it's fine. Okay, yeah, but mastery, yeah, probably I need to read this to figure out if I can pull anything out of it, and probably I will.
Mhm.
But to repeat myself, thank you for taking the time for making this happen, and I can only hope that we stay in touch. We can probably have another conversation if you want. And if you need anything, let me know.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on. I know it took a second for us to get here, but yeah, it was great talking to you. I appreciate the thoughtful questions. Thank you
Yeah.
again.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Yep. See ya.
So That was a very insightful conversation. And I really appreciate James sharing his journey and his experiences along the way. And let me wrap this up in some key learnings. So, what have we learned? Create for yourself first. The work you make for yourself often leads to the best opportunities later. Second, style evolves through refinement. Instead of constantly reinventing yourself, improve and simplify what already feels true to you. Third, authenticity matters. A strong creative voice comes from personal influences, experiences, and perspective. 4. Opportunities can come unexpectedly. Big collaborations often appear out of nowhere, so focus on consistently making good work. Number 5. Balance art and business carefully. Not every opportunity is worth taking if it compromises the long-term vision of your work. And lastly, number 6, think long-term. Build work you want to be proud of many years from now, not just work that pays off quickly today. So I think there was a lot to learn and to really take to your hearts. And I really like to thank James again for sharing this and for the conversation we had. Thank you so much and stay tuned for the next episode to come. All right. Bye and see ya.